As simple as getting to the side of it and not keeping your eyes down on it, which is elementary as that sounds, still very important even at this level of baseball.
So, again, this is where we're going to start tonight on the baseball hour. I should rephrase. This is where we were going to start on the baseball hour tonight. And then the news broke about, hour and a half ago or so in Major League Baseball that Pete Rose has been removed from the ineligible list, along with Shoeless Joe Jackson, and other members of the 1919 Chicago White Sox and the Black Sox cheating scandal. All of those people now, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Pete Rose, Eddie Seacott, who was on that team, a pitcher with the White Sox back then, and the additional members of the White Sox. All those people are now eligible for induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame. So this is also on the table if you want to call the show tonight, 617-779-0985. Again, the Pete Rose news I cannot overlook because of the magnitude of the decision. I did not see this coming. I certainly had heard that Rob Manfred, the commissioner, was exploring it, considering it, giving Rose the opportunity to be inducted into the Hall of Fame again. I didn't think there was a freaking chance that this was going to happen. But here you go. And for those of you who don't know, Rose could be eligible for enshrinement into the Hall of Fame as soon as 2028. So he would be up for discussion among the committee that would now handle his case at the end of 2027 and could be in the class of 2028. So that's where we'll start tonight on the Baseball Hour. 617-779-0985. Again, I want to get to the Red Sox as well because they took another one on the chin last night, this time from the Detroit Tigers. Third time they've lost a game in this fashion, which is to say that they gave up at least 10 runs and get their heads kicked in, which is exactly what happened against the Tigers. The starting pitcher in the game, Tanner Houck, who has now had 2 starts this year. 2, where he has allowed 11 runs. More than any pitcher in Red Sox history. So, again, 11 earned runs. So, again, let me give this to you in the simplest terms. The Red Sox record for earned runs allowed in a game is 11. Tanner Houck has done it twice in about 5 starts. And I'll give you the exact number of starts now here as I look it up. The first time was on, it's actually 6 starts. April 14th, he allowed 11 runs to Tampa Bay. And then in this outing, 11 runs to the Detroit Tigers. Combined in those 2 games, Tanner Houck has pitched 4 2/3 innings. He has allowed 19 hits, 23 runs, 22 earned, 4 home runs, 1 strikeout, and 5 walks. Folks, that is not a big league pitcher. That is a hack. And so if you were to say to me, how did this happen to Tanner Houck? The fact of the matter is I don't have an answer for you. And the fact that the Red Sox are taking losses like this on the chin at times where you are looking at them and saying, okay, they're about to turn a corner, they're about to play a little bit better, to me is mind-boggling. I have no idea what is wrong with Tanner Houck. I wish I could tell you. I'm not a pitching coach. And I would also go so far as to tell you that as it pertains to Houck specifically, he doesn't have an answer either. So to me, absolutely stunning to see the Red Sox take it on the chin last night. And again, the Pete Rose story, I want to bring in Dan Shaughnessy of the Globe a little later in the show as well to give his thoughts on the decision today by Rob Manfred, because frankly, I'm stunned by it. And I do want to get to more of that. But first, we'll start taking your calls right away. Gino is in the car on the Red Sox and their chances of getting back on track. Go ahead, Gino.
Hey, Maz, what's going on? So I've been watching the Red Sox all year this year. Obviously, we know that their core is a bunch of young players. And the question to me is, if you're Alex Cora and you're the manager, why aren't you putting a little bit more of a regimented approach towards these young guys? I appreciate his mindset of letting the players kind of be a little bit more free and do what they want. But to me, in my opinion, that works with a heavy veteran team and not a rookie team. he's not making adjustments, and to me, that is really what is having this team
Okay,
struggle.
so Gino, what adjustments are you talking about?
I think that he should, as with some certain players like Rafaela or other guys, young guys as well, have, automatic first take, see the ball out of your hand, and have a more competitive at-bat, because I don't think our at-bats are that competitive at all.
Okay, so Gino, I think I don't totally disagree with you on the competitiveness of the at-bats. They've had problems this year making contact, which to me is the big issue. But I do think you have to treat these guys differently. And when I say differently, I mean you have to treat every player differently. So Rafaela has actually been more selective of late. I think he had a couple of 7-pitch at-bats in the last, 3 or 4 days. So it certainly seems to me like he's shooting the ball to the opposite field a little bit more. I see a little more discipline at the plate. In spring training, I know that Rafaela was giving them a lot of the things they wanted to see at that particular point in time. And then he got away from it. Now it feels like it's back again. So the offensive approach overall, if you want to get on that, I'm with you. The Red Sox inability to put the ball in play is a problem. It's been a problem all year long. There are too many strikeouts. I do find the timing of your call to be a little odd. And when I say a little odd, they gave up 14 runs last night. They were down 12-0 before the game even had a heartbeat. They were getting pounded all over the place because Tanner Houck all of a sudden can't get anybody out. Last year, he was an all-star. So I don't understand what has happened to Houck. But what I do know is he is failing miserably. And not only that, but I don't see the Red Sox fixing him. So part of the thing that concerns me with the Red Sox and the way they approach the game now, and I know this is, particularly as it pertains to their pitchers, can Andrew Bailey, Jimmy Stewart, do you think Andrew Bailey can recognize a delivery flaw? In other words, if Houck has some sort of flaw in his delivery, can they recognize that? Or are they just deciding, no, we're going to spin the ball a little bit more because that's what the analytics tell us to do?
B, no, we're going to spin the ball because that's what the analytics tell us.
So I just don't know how much real coaching is going on with the Red Sox anymore.
Doesn't feel like any.
And for that matter, I would tell you, I don't know how much coaching is going on in sports or in Major League Baseball in general. So it's one thing to tell a player, go up. The prior caller just said, or the first caller of the show, mandatory take on the first pitch. But again, I would say to you, okay, that is sort of we're going to tell you how to approach an at-bat. Is his swing flawed?
Yes.
And is this anything that anybody even focuses on anymore? Or is it all just a cookie-cutter approach to tell everybody to hit the same way?
Cookie cutter.
Because I do feel it is that sort of thing, Jimmy. All joking aside. And I wonder with Houck. I don't know. To me, Houck's two-seam fastball is typically a dominant pitch. There are times he's had it in games this year. There are other times he hasn't. The fact that the Red Sox haven't been able to figure it out boggles my mind.
That's a Red Sox team philosophy, as told by Craig Breslow on the Netflix documentary, that they believe in spin rate more and off-speed pitches more because the ball doesn't travel as far on lesser velocity.
I mean, you could have fooled me because Houck has given up home runs like nobody's business.
And why does power pitching play in the postseason? And if that's also true, why did you get Chapman, who throws 101? Hello, anybody?
No, it's a good question, Jimmy. I don't have the answers for you.
Okay.
I do not have all the answers.
I can predict the future, so there's that.
Let's go to Robert in Vermont on what the Red Sox should do with Tanner Houck. Go ahead, Robert. Robert! Okay, Robert is taking a nap on the line. We'll get back to him momentarily. Brian in the truck on Tanner Houck. Go ahead, Brian.
Guys, I feel horrible for Houck because I really liked him coming into the season. But
Same.
do you think, it might have been the sticky stuff that they outlawed last year that he was doing, and now we just can't get that spin rate? And, I mean, is there anyone in the pipeline they could bring up?
So,
Thank you.
yeah, so Brian, on the sticky stuff, that change actually happened a couple of years ago. And Houck had his best year last year when the sticky stuff was banned. So I don't think it's a change in the rules. To me, it is mystifying how a pitcher can look as good as he did in the early part of last year and then look as inept as he looks this season. I've heard a lot of people offer up arguments to explain this or theories to explain this, one of which is Houck has a complex delivery, there's a lot of moving parts. It's arms and legs in different directions. Do you remember Garrett Richards when he pitched for the Red Sox here a couple of years ago? I thought he had one of the most effed up deliveries I've ever seen. There were times where it felt like his feet would land pointing to the third base dugout and his arm would come all the way across his body and throw to the first base side. He was never quite this bad as Houck. So you want to tell me his arms and his legs are going in different directions? I've seen a lot of guys with bad deliveries get people out better than Tanner Houck is getting them out right now. He's had 2 games where he's given up 11 runs. I didn't think that was possible. And incredibly, still in the big leagues, although it certainly sounds like Cora's getting ready to pull him out of there. I said, I do want to get to Pete Rose. And there are a lot of questions I have about why Major League Baseball decided now to all of a sudden remove Rose from the ineligible list and grant him access to Cooperstown. And when I say access, that doesn't mean he's in yet. He would still need to be put on by a 16-member committee that will receive his case or candidacy in December of 2027. So that's still some time away. But the door is now open for Rose to get into Cooperstown. First of all, do you want him there? And secondly, I think the bigger story is what is behind baseball's decision, or Rob Manfred's decision, the commissioner's decision to all of a sudden remove Rose from the permanent ineligible list, along with Joe Jackson and other members of the 2018 White Sox. So Dan Shaughnessy covered Pete Rose during his career, at least on some level. So we're going to bring in Dan the next segment to see if he can answer questions. We'll get to your calls as well. And Trivia Tuesday a little bit later in the show as well. We'll give away a $50 Gulf Gas card. All of that tonight on the Baseball Hour. Obviously, that made Pete Rose baseball's all-time hits leader. Single against Eric Shaw of the San Diego Padres into left center field at Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati. Rose got obviously a tremendous ovation from the crowd there in Cincinnati where he grew up and was a hometown hero, all the good stuff. Nonetheless, ended up banned from baseball for the entirety of his post-playing career, pretty much. Afterwards, learned that he gambled on baseball and was a forbidden entry into the Hall of Fame. Now, for those of you who don't know, let me just say this part quickly before we bring in Dan Shaughnessy of the Globe. The Baseball Writers Association of America, which has typically voted for the Hall of Fame over the years and still does, never had a chance to elect Pete Rose. So there are still millions of people out there who think that Rose was not let into the Hall of Fame by the baseball writers. This is untrue. Rose has never appeared on the ballot. He was banned from baseball permanently by Bart Giamatti, the commissioner, which prevented him from being put on the ballot for consideration for induction into the Hall of Fame. Okay, so it never got to the writers. Today, the commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfred, gave up that right to keep Rose out of the Hall of Fame. That's effectively what happened. They took him off the permanently ineligible list along with Shoeless Joe Jackson and other members of the 1919 Chicago White Sox who were involved in the Black Sox scandal in which the White Sox threw the World Series. All those people are now eligible. They will go before, and I'm going to try to give you the name of the committee accurately. They are on the Hall of Fame Classic Era Committee. There are 16 people on that committee, including 5 former players, 6 if you count Joe Torre, which you should. He was both a player and an executive, and a number of other people, the names of which I'll give you later. My question is this, and if any of you have an answer for it out there, please let me know. Why did Rob Manfred decide to do this? This stance, the banning of Pete Rose, among others, was one of the few things that baseball, I think, over the years did right. I have said that if it were put to me and I'm asked to vote on him as a player, I'd have voted him in. But the point is, baseball prevented that. Baseball took the step on its own to ban Rose, something they didn't do with the steroid guys. So I'll tell you what, now on the Volkswagen Dealers Expert Hotline, let's bring in Dan Shaughnessy of the Boston Globe, longtime Hall of Fame voter. So, Dan, you tell me, why all of a sudden has Manfred changed his mind?
Well, the president got this going around Christmas and, sent out one of his missives on Truth Social that, saying he was going to pardon Pete. Pete was convicted of a tax evasion thing in the 90s. He did a little bit of time. It was a 5-month sentence. But, it's a convicted felon that Trump was going to pardon that, which would be, he can still do anytime he feels like it. But in addition, he said, and he should be in the Hall of Fame, and time for baseball to get off its fat ass and blah, blah, blah. So, and then Rose's lawyer and his daughter met with Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, to formally file a petition to get Pete reinstated, which was done while Pete was living and turned down a couple times. Just for his lack of sincerity and truth-telling, etc. And then, in this instance, Manfred then met with Trump, and obviously he's caving to Trump. And Manfred doesn't have the aversion to gambling that a lot of commissioners have had. He's made all the partnerships with whichever DraftKings, whichever ones, but they're all those professional sports leagues have done that, and. That's where it is, and he caved, and he's thrown it in the lap of this ERAS committee, and that'll be 16 people, and Rose needs 12 out of the 16. That won't come up until December of 2027 at the earliest, which would put him on the stage in July of 27, 28, but the summer of 28. So it's 3 years off before you'd see him in Cooperstown if he got the 12 out of 16 votes. And that committee, those names changed. It's not fixed. It's usually about 7 or 8 Hall of Famers and then executives and 2 or 3 media people comprise the 16. And you have to get 12 of the 16 votes, and there's usually 7 other people on that ballot that they're voting on. So it's hard to get a bunch in at once.
Okay, so Dan, just for the benefit of knowledge, how long have you voted?
I know I was voting in '88. So yeah, long time.
Okay, so how does let's just play the game here for a second. Let's say that Rose goes up before that committee and gets elected in. Obviously, he died recently. Would somebody from his family represent him and give his acceptance speech? How does that work?
Well, sure, that happens all the time with deceased. I mean, just last summer, Dick Allen was enshrined, and he's not living. I mean, it happens all the time. So,
okay.
They get people to represent, sure.
And are you one of these people that believes that MLB going into business with DraftKings and whatnot, that is hypocritical?
Well, I understand. There's a measure of that, and I heard you guys on the radio today, and Felger did a pretty good job on that. They're not the same thing. Just because they're in business with the shady operators of legalized gambling doesn't mean players can now bet on the sport in which they play. So there is a separation there. But it certainly it makes it a lot more gray, a lot harder for the players to maybe understand the how sacred that crime is, and what a horrible thing. Oddly, Tony, the commissioner's office was invented because of the Black Sox scandal. There was no commissioner before that. They brought in Kennesaw Mountain Landis to clean up the sport because there was so much betting going on. And what you need to have is that contract between fans and the participants is that the game's on the level. And so when the ball goes through Buckner's legs, you hear a lot of stuff, but you don't hear it's fixed. Well, as soon as you start to have participants involved in betting on the sport, you're all over. It's fixed, and that's why the crimes are the penalties are so strong on this, which is why Rose was punished for so long.
So, Dan, what do you think it says for the current state of the game that this has now been reversed? I guess what I'm saying is this, because I was reading something recently about the daughter of Bart Giamatti, who again was the guy who...
That was me. It was his son, Marcus. That was my Sunday column last week.
Okay, it was his son then, so forgive me that. But the son of Bart Giamatti basically saying this is a horrible thing to do. It would completely reverse the precedent my father set and undermine everything he tried to accomplish. Is that something? Do you agree with that stance?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
I mean, I was there for all that. Giamatti was only 51. He died 8 days after the Rose thing went down. I mean, you could say it literally killed him. I mean, he had a heart attack. He was a smoker and out of shape, but he died in the vineyard 8 days after the Rose dust-up was adjudicated in New York in the summer of '89.
Dan, I still don't get this. I don't understand it. Even if so, and maybe I'm just an idiot, which is entirely possible. I don't mean to diminish that part of it, but. What does baseball get if Rob Manfred is quote unquote caving into Trump? I don't know. Is there something the game gets out of it? Why would all of a sudden, after all these decades, really, and again, if you go back to the White Sox scandal, we're talking over 100 years where baseball has made it clear that this stance will not be tolerated. And then all of a sudden, the two biggest people who are on the ineligible list, Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson, now all of a sudden have the chance to be admitted into Cooperstown. To me, there's got to be something more, Dan. There has to be some sort of, and I'm not saying but I find the whole thing to be really, really odd.
Well, you and I are not smart guys here, so we're in dangerous territory trying to speculate on this. But I think that you're seeing institutions all over the country, all over the world, that are being pressured and caving. The universities themselves, Ivy League universities have been a big target. Harvard being asked to roll over on a lot of their stuff, and you're seeing that throughout. And a lot of institutions, law firms are caving to offer free law service, to the president, because that way they'll stay out of trouble. And, you can sick the IRS on them. You can shut them down for this or that or not give them. Baseball's got the antitrust exemption. Let's not even forget that. So who knows what Trump's holding over his head. And Manfred's never really, I don't believe he loves baseball the way you and I do. I just don't. And, he's kind of a bean counter lawyer. And, when you had Bud Selig for all of his foibles, he loved baseball, as did Fay Vincent, as did Bart Giamatti. We don't have that with Rob, in my view.
Okay, I mean, he did call the trophy a piece of metal once, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that stuff. It's just not his thing. He likes golf, whatever.
So, Dan, I'm mystified. I was stunned when I saw this today. And I didn't. Did you cover Rose? Let me ask you that before we.
Oh, sure. He was the greatest. I mean, he was the delight. He was funny, and Pete would, guys would be talking about taking greenies, and Pete would say, "Oh, is that all you take? I take that to watch Monday Night Football." He was hilarious. He loved talking about his hits. He loved talking about baseball. And he could sign 1 million autographs in 2 seconds because his name was so short, 8 letters. And he had the whole thing down. He was a operator. He was like a carnival barker. I mean, he was just great and got the most out of his ability. And no one ever took his hits away. His hits are there. All of his records are there. That stuff goes with him to the grave. So
let me ask you this question: When he was playing, was there talk of him being dirty and how dirty he was?
I mean, there was no talk about gambling. I wasn't around the team a lot, the Reds, National League, the Expos, Phillies, etc. But no, I don't remember hearing it until he was managing the Reds, because they were in Plant City near Winter Haven. So we would see them. They'd come over for spring training to Channel Lakes Park there. And again, Pete was a writer's dream. He'd fill it up for you. He was great.
All right, I'm still confused. I'm confused by baseball. I thought it was one of the things that that they would never change, Dan. I was stunned when I saw this today.
It wouldn't have happened, and it didn't happen. Seelig turned this down multiple times. I think Rob turned it down one time too. But I guess the fact that he's dead and the fact that they're getting pressure from the president, Rob rolled over on this one.
Stunning. All right, Dan. Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Take care, pal.
Okay, Dan Shaughnessy of the Globe. While we're on the topic, Jimmy, let me just take a call here. Dan is in New York on Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I think that the MLB I think it started to be more lax about letting people in, because I think that there's so much betting now going on in baseball, just because, the whole thing with Shohei Ohtani happened. And I think that it's a lot of it's being brushed over the rug. I think that there is a lot of betting going on with the players in baseball, and I think that they're more letting it go unnoticed. I also think that Pete Rose is worth it to go to the Hall of Fame. He's not like Barry Bonds, that his numbers are actually tainted. He was a great ball player. You're not able to say that he wasn't a great ball player. And
Dan, I'm going to let you go, but I'll say this. If you think that Pete Rose was a better player than Barry Bonds, you're out of your mind. And in fact, so this is one of the things about the whole story that bugs the crap out of me too. Look at the guys who aren't in the Hall of Fame. Major League Baseball, just to me, they took a stand on the gambling guys for obvious reasons, and good for them. Okay? They passed on the steroid guys. So they wanted nothing to do with that. Again, the writers never had the chance to vote for Pete Rose. But when it came to the steroid guys, because it was messy, Major League Baseball wanted nothing to do with it, so they pawned it off on the writers and then made the writers look bad. And again, I speak as a former writer, so take that into consideration. But now you're telling me Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame, Shoeless Joe Jackson's in the Hall of Fame, and Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, who am I leaving out? Those guys aren't? Is ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And I know Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame yet, but does anyone honestly believe that they're going to keep him out now? That baseball's gotten out of the way? If that happens, that's a freaking joke. So I do feel like baseball just sold out. I still want to know for what specifically, because there's some sort of wink, wink, nod, nod between the commissioner and the president that to me just doesn't feel right. So sit tight.
sports trivia. Maz has baseball trivia. It's time for you to win some stuff.
Hey, that time of the week. Trivia Tuesday presented by Gulf. Win a $50 gas card from Gulf to fuel your way to Fenway Park. Here's how it works. I give out the number. We take two callers, callers 1 and 2, 617-931-0985. When you call, again, callers 1 and 2, Jimmy Stewart, our producer, and Kevin Majori back there, will put you on hold. Then we'll bring in caller number 1. I'll ask you one trivia question. You get it right, you win the Gulf gas card. You get it wrong, we move on to caller number 2. If caller number 2 fails, we bring in 2 more, but that's it. We will stop at 4 callers. 617-931-0985 to win a $50 Gulf gas card so that you can fuel your way to Fenway Park. I want to continue with the Pete Rose discussion. Some of you called or are calling also about Joe Jackson, so we'll get to him as well. In fact, let's bring in Josh in Connecticut. Jimmy, I'm frozen, so maybe you're going to have to punch him up on line 4. Josh in Connecticut actually wants to talk about Shoeless Joe. Go ahead, Josh.
Okay. Hey, yeah, Tony, thanks for taking the call. Just wanted to say, what a lot of people don't realize with Joe Jackson, he doesn't even deserve to be mentioned in the conversation with Pete Rose. This guy was illiterate, and his teammates duped him into signing some sort of contract with the Mafia where he didn't know what he was signing. He thought it was for charity or something. And if he was trying to throw the World Series, he did a terrible job. In that World Series, he hit .375 with a walk, home run, 6 RBIs, 18 total bases, so 956 OPS. So he was elite. And if you think he was milking it in the field, he didn't have an error.
All right, Josh, I'm going to let you go because, again, I've heard all this stuff about Joe Jackson before. It's entirely possible that you're right. It's a confusing, complicated case. Most people who listen to this show, Joe Jackson was over 100 years ago. So I'm sure his family is also relieved today. I'm not trying to minimize that part of it, but it was so long ago, I'm not sure that anyone has any immediate connection to it. Pete Rose is different. People my age watch Pete Rose play. A lot of you who are younger didn't see him play, but you've heard of him, certainly. And I will tell you also, by the way, that tonight's trivia will be Pete Rose-centric. So I'll tell you what, for those of you who are calling for the talk show, sit tight. Let's bring in Frank from Worcester, our first contestant on Trivia Tuesday for the $50 Gulf gas card. Frank, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, Frank, how old are you?
55.
Okay, good. So you remember Pete Rose, and this is good.
I sure do.
Okay. Pete Rose is baseball's all-time leader in hits, 4,256. He broke the record held by Ty Cobb, who was 4,121. Okay? Who's third on the list?
Ohtani.
Incorrect. Jimmy, let him go. Not even close. Ohtani, the third on the all-time hit list. He just started playing a couple of years ago, for crying out loud. Okay, 6 or 7 years ago. We have another caller on there, Stu. I might be able to do this now. Will is in Hingham. I'm still frozen, Jimmy. Will is there. Will, you there? Can you hear me?
Hey, Maz, I'm here.
Okay, here's your question. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 24.
Okay, you're 24. Good. That's this will make it a little harder because, again, it's a Pete Rose question. Do you know who Pete Rose is?
Sure do.
Okay. How many World Series did Pete Rose win?
Let's see, Maz. I'm going to go with 3.
3 is correct. Okay, can you tell me who he won them with?
I'm going to say he won 2 with the Big Red Machine and 1 with the Phillies.
Very good. Very good for a 24-year-old. All right, let's put Will on hold. Jimmy, he gets a $50 Gulf gas card again.
Can I guess the hits question?
Sure.
Is it Hank Aaron?
Hank Aaron is correct. He's number 3 on the all-time hit list. Hank Aaron, who is quite possibly the most underappreciated, underrated hitter in baseball history. Maybe the best, most underrated player in the history of the game. I think he's also number 1 on RBIs all time.
And doubles, I believe.
Yeah, it's a career average of, 305. something like that, 200 and something, 250 stolen bases maybe, something in that range, 755 home runs. Phenomenal player.
Total bases, all-time leader. RBIs, all-time leader.
Completely underappreciated, Hank Aaron, if you ask me. But that's a different story for a different day. All right, back to the talk show. 617-779-0985. Robert in Vermont on Tanner Houck. Robert, what do you got?
What should the Red Sox do with Tanner? Should they send him down to the minors to see if they can correct his mechanics, or they should outright release him?
Oh, I wouldn't release him. I wouldn't do that. I mean, I'm not ready to make that switch yet. Jimmy, we can drop him, please. I'm not ready to get rid of Houck. But I'll tell you that everything else is in play. You want to come up with some sort of phantom injury to stash him on the injured list? Have a blast. You want to send him down to AAA? Absolutely. Now, again, I don't know what the rules are with regard to that. I know that, the rules in Major League Baseball used to be that, first of all, you only have so many options to go back and forth to the minor leagues. And then even when you still have options, you reach a certain point in your career where you have to accept the assignment. So I'm not sure whether Tanner Houck is at that point yet. It has enough service time in the major leagues to reject the assignment. But there are certain criteria that have to be met. Sending him to the minor leagues, though, is absolutely an option. That I would totally consider because he's useless at the big league level right now. And I loved Houck last year. I thought he was fabulous. In fact, I thought he had figured it out. Turns out he hadn't. Sean in Colorado on Hunter Dobbins and Tanner Houck. Jimmy, he's online too, if we could punch him up. Sean, what do you got?
Hey, Tony, how's it going?
Good.
I'll be quick, probably late to the party, but over the weekend, my take started to develop that watching Hunter Dobbins, I think he's a top 5 starting pitcher in our organization right now, and that comes from his confidence exuding from his adamancy and quick work. After watching Tanner Houck last night, I can confidently say I think Dobbins is a top 5 pitcher, and if the Red Sox elect to send him back down and continue to hand Tanner Houck the ball on the mound, they're not prioritizing winning first and foremost for this team.
So, Sean, it's a good point. Now, look, again, I don't know about the contractual limitations with Houck, stuff like that, but I'll tell you this. I mentioned this last night. I actually had Jimmy pull the sound earlier tonight of Hunter Dobbins striking out Bobby Witt Jr. on Friday night. Maybe we'll play it for you later in the week, just because I wasn't expecting the Pete Rose thing. The way he approached his at-bat with Hunter Dobbins to knock him off the plate the way he did, who does that anymore? And I'm not criticizing. I loved it. Somehow, some way, along the line, you just weren't allowed to do that anymore. It was frowned upon. I still don't understand why. If the guy is one of the best hitters in the sport, get his ass off the plate. And Hunter Dobbins did that. So he won me over a little bit in that. Now, if he screws up, I'll be on his ass like I am on anyone else. But on that particular sequence, loved it. Huge point in his favor. Cliff and Weymouth on Barry Bonds. Go ahead.
Tony, it really sparked a thing in me here. Rose needs to be in because of his performance on the field. Bonds does not deserve to be in because of his performance-enhancing drugs. Then you go down a slippery slope. You're going to put Sosa in with his cork bat and the steroids. You're going to put Rafael Palmeiro in and all those guys. The finger waved at Congress and Mark McGwire. You can't.
Cliff, let me put you on hold here just for a second, okay, before you rattle off every name to me. Do you think that Bobby Bonds, I'm sorry, I said Bobby Bonds, Freudian slip. Do you think that Barry Bonds wasn't a good player and that he was purely chemically enhanced? Do you believe that?
No, Barry Bonds would have gotten in without the drugs. And then he saw how good everybody else was doing when you get that Brady Anderson 50 home run season. But then if you're going to put all these steroid guys in, then you got to rank Pedro up there as one of the top 5 pitchers of all time because he blew those guys away and dominated in the steroid era.
Okay, I do put Pedro in the top 5 pitchers of all time. So this is the part I don't get. So you said just because I put in Barry Bonds, I have to put in Palmeiro? Why? Because of the numbers? I don't vote by the numbers. I vote by my eyeballs. I saw Barry Bonds play. He was one of the best players I've ever seen. Rafael Palmeiro was very good. The numbers were inflated by the steroid era. I would say the same of Sammy Sosa. To put Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa in the same breath as a baseball player is an insult to Bonds. Sosa hit a crap ton of home runs after steroids. He couldn't hold a jock. He couldn't hold Bonds' jock when it came to playing the entire game. Bonds was a far superior player to Sammy Sosa, and I'd say the same about Bonds and Mark McGwire. Not even close. Mike in a car on Hank Aaron. Go ahead, Mike.
Tony, this was I was going to do it as a trivia question. I don't waste your time with that. Hank Aaron, when he broke the record for home runs, if you watch the film, there's a guy who climbs up the fence, didn't have a chance, but tries to catch the ball. That was Bill Buckner.
Yes, that is correct. They were playing the were they playing the Dodgers that night? They were. In fact, who gave up that home run? Was it Al Downing?
Yeah, Al Downing.
Okay, Al Downing gave up the home run. It was the reason I got confused. It was caught in the Braves bullpen by Tom House, who was Tom Brady's quarterback coach. Okay, Tom House became a throwing mechanics guy. Not to bore you with that. In any case, we're going to break early tonight because of the interview with Dan Shaughnessy ran a little bit long. So Red Sox are playing the Tigers currently in Detroit. Scoreless in the bottom of the first. Joe Murray has you for the balance of the night. We'll catch you tomorrow.
This is the Baseball Hour on the Sports Hub.
When life throws you a curveball,